physics, astrophysics. You don't quite look like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I have a feeling you know what you're talking about. What are you doing your studies on specifically? What are you learning about? What's this work that you're able to do from home?
So basically, on the studies side, in terms of the coursework, there are a lot of basic physics courses that I've done over the course of the degree. Basic mechanics and waves, electricity, quantum mechanics, and plenty of math courses. Because math really is the language of science in a lot of ways. And I'll just point out for anybody who's concerned I'm about to get all mathy, I had no math background before I started studying. I was certain I was going to be studying law. When I moved to Israel at the age of 18, I was accepted to a program in Australia where I was, that was my plan. So yeah, don't worry about me getting too mathy or too specific. The things that I do within the coursework that are astronomy related is basically anything that I can. I have a huge passion for it. I find it to be a really amazing unifier. There's this concept of the Copernican principle, which is a very humbling idea that you look at Earth as being, you realize that Earth is not in a particularly special or unique place in the solar system. The solar system is not in a special or unique place in our galaxy. And our galaxy is not in a special or unique place in the universe. I think it's very humbling. As opposed to certain viewpoints that would take it that all three of the world's major religions happen to be located in one particular patch of desert in the Middle East. But that's a side point. So that's kind of the background behind why I love astronomy and why I love studying, the natural laws of the universe. The things that I've been focusing on recently have been working on a couple of different projects with radio telescopes. So basically, radio telescopes are like regular telescopes, except they look like antennas and they work with much longer wavelengths, right? Light works as a wave. It's a particle that's kind of going up and down, so to speak. These are, helpful tools to imagine. Things aren't really like that. At the end of the day, physics is just a tool for approximating and creating frameworks in which we can understand the universe, right? So you have light.
Why people do religion and not physics, because it just sounds easier to me, the religious side than the physics side.
Well, it sounds like it's easier because you can say, I know the answer. And I've always said, not always, since I first heard this expression, I've adapted it and stolen it and taken it as my own. But since then, I've been saying that I'd rather have questions that you can't answer than answers that you can't question. And that is what I love about science. I love the fact that you can look at something, you can say, I've learned this small bit, and this small bit has given me 1,000 other questions, and I'm okay with that. I can accept that, and you can put a pin in it, you can put a placeholder and say, this is something that we need to understand at a later time. But to kind of take something and say, oh, this is the answer to everything, it seems lazy. Intellectually, it seems lazy to me. Anyway, most of the focus, I know I'm rambling, most of the focus of the work I do is on stars. So I've just been working on this project on variable stars. They're stars that they reach a stage in their evolution. Stars live for millions and billions of years, and stars reach a certain stage. Certain stars, depending on certain initial conditions, how much mass they had, various other technical things, where the thermal processes, the nuclear thermal processes that are happening within a star, causes them to pulsate. So I've been doing a lot of work with data on pulsating stars.
When you have a large-scale world event, it can dominate the direction of funding. I see there being a huge push of funding toward biomedical research. To be honest, I think it's not necessarily going to be useful. I mean, it could be useful in the short term for its relation to the coronavirus, but once the world gets over this, whether it's a year or 2 years or 3 years, I don't necessarily see the point in continuing funding at the same rate. Maybe a slight increase is warranted, but there is potentially an opportunity cost that funding that gets pushed toward biomedical research might get drawn away from other sciences, or God willing, the humanities. I say that as a humanities professor, right? Is this a concern at all?
It's hard for me. I mean, naturally, my favorite is the area that I focus on. All areas of science are fascinating, and they all warrant continued funding and investigation and research. I think the reality is, though, as long as the scientific body is continually funded on a whole, you will always have people who are continuing to produce, through methods of critical thinking and the scientific method, are continuing to produce both theories and technologies that are widely applicable. So one example of the technology that I believe was first applied to earthquakes, and it was basically a technology that could look at Richter scale readings, if that's the correct term. I'm not a geologist, but basically look at pre-earthquake readings. So you'd see some kind of squiggly line that looks like it's just a baseline and nothing's really happening. That's the human eye. And this technology basically relied on an artificial intelligence, or I should say a machine learning algorithm, which was able to analyze what looked like normal behavior and to predict, by looking at small changes, to predict when major earthquakes were actually about to occur. Now, this same technology was applicable to perturbations within gas pipelines or oil pipelines, meaning that you could take the idea of looking at a wave function or some kind of continued process and detect, using the same algorithm, changes in a variety of different things, right? So that's just the first example I could think of a physical process or a technology that was designed for one thing that was immediately applicable to a world of other things. And I think that's the key here.
So how is this affecting your wife? I mean, the relationship between the two of you. I'm trying to raise this idea of familial claustrophobia, that when people spend time together, even time with their loved ones, it can be a bit much. It can grow a little bit out of control. Now and then, we need a breath of fresh air, take a walk, a glass of wine in private in the broom closet,
I definitely get what you're saying. As somebody who moved away from his family in Australia, I left Australia when I was 18, and I've lived my entire adult life away from home, and I've definitely come to realize both the importance of family and how simplistic it is to, as a young adult, to view, to encourage this desire or to feed into this desire to get away from the noise, the emotion, the drama of family. I'm very lucky to have had a family who, despite the normal kind of drama and, craziness that, all Jewish families have, or all families have, all sorts of, Jewish guilt or Jewish family problems. I know it can be immediately applied to, Catholic guilt or Polish guilt or, insert culture or religion here.
Right.
But putting all that aside, I'm lucky enough to have had a relatively normal and stable upbringing, and whatever mistakes my parents made, I can't fault them for it. At the end of the day, they're still human. I think that is, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do. We're all just trying to, be the best versions of ourselves, or the versions of ourselves we feel the most comfortable with, around, people who we love and people who allow us to do that, but also people who call us out when we need to be called out on things. For the most part, that's been the relationship I've had with my wife. We've, always been good about being able to call each other out on our flaws, sometimes a little bit too much. But despite the ups and the downs, I'll be honest, this period has been really good for us. We've been cooking a lot more, and we do that together. We've been spending more time together. We've been learning how to communicate better. And it's not perfect. I won't lie to you. But I felt like it's been really good. And I think that there are a lot of families who have had similar experiences because they don't test these boundaries. They don't test these situations the rest of the time. I mean, think about a regular husband and wife. How often do they really see each other? They see each other for, half an hour in the morning, a couple of hours at night, and then maybe, a little bit longer on weekends. And same thing with parents and their children. And I think it's abysmal. And I think that this period, for those who are privileged enough to be in a position now of not fighting to keep a roof over their heads or to put food on the table, and I recognize that is the reality for a large number of people right now. But for people who aren't in that position, I think a lot of people are getting the ability to really test the waters of their familial relationships. And I think that's really, for the most part, healthy.
So you're bringing up something interesting, which is, I think this is an important time to take a breath, to pause, and think about self-improvement.
Yeah.
There's this meme going around Facebook, and I'm sure Instagram and all those other lovely platforms, about if you don't walk out of this with a side hustle, with a new skill, and some level of other self-improvement, then you're missing the image. And then there was like a backlash where people will say like, hey, you don't know what I'm going through right now. Like, and I understand it. But at the same time, I really do think this is an important moment to try something new, to try something bold, to work on ourselves, to work on our relationships. And specifically as men, this is something that we're constantly in need of work on, right? I think to be held accountable for to have someone push us there. But is there anything that you're looking to in terms of self-improvement during this time, besides that important relationship with your wife, the communications that you've been improving and building on?
Absolutely. I think mental health, to be frank, is one of those things for me personally, and I know for a lot of other people. We all have different ruts or habits that we get into of, dealing with our issues, whether it's, depression or stress or, anxiety, all these different things that people experience. And when you have, this regular hustle and bustle, there isn't always the time to sit down and address these issues. And I get what you're saying, and I am trying to be as productive as I can in terms of, getting research work done and getting ahead of my coursework, and doing some side projects that we can talk about that later. But the science communication work that I do, and it's really important to me. And so I am trying to be productive in that sense. But at the end of the day, when recently during this period, when I have been having moments of extreme frustration or just feeling like it's just not my day, I've been trying to deal with it, to take advantage of the fact that I can, that I have the time to deal with it in a healthier way, and to do so, to take a deep breath, take a step back. I have been trying to keep to my schedule of waking up every morning and starting the day with some stretches, a bit of yoga, and some meditation. I found that to be something that I've been focusing on, and every time I talk to people, friends of mine have been having these frustrations with productivity because they feel this pressure that, yeah, I have to do something. I have to, learn a new language, or learn a new programming language, or, finish this book, or catch up on whatever it is. I say to them, like, that's cool, and I get that, and that would be awesome. But at the end of the day, look at this time for self-improvement on a deeper level. You can always try to be reading, you can always try to be learning a new language, but fix your relationship with those around you, your family, your wife, your partner, your kids, and fix your relationship with yourself. As much as that might sound a bit, hand wavy, we all have a very complex relationship with ourselves, and we all unfortunately tend to lie to ourselves. There's this version of us that we present to the world. There's a version of us that we present to those who are close to us, and then there's the real us that generally ends up being hidden a lot of the time. I'm not saying that everybody should, be doing this kind of, liar-esque, absolute honesty, because that's always, that's not necessarily always healthy or helpful. But to try to be honest with yourself more than you are during a regular hustle and bustle, to take that time and to be more introspective, I think that could be the best thing that a lot of people get out of this.